director, Bill calls East Berlin. Now, this is our first actual show. We will be recording it today, and it will be airing on Monday night at 9 o'clock. What you will see here today, I'm sure you've all been to TV tapings before. Oprah will do this, then Oprah will do that. You know the drill. What will happen is things will run out of sequence sometimes. So we will do something here today, and when you see the show on Monday night, it will be a little bit different, but I know that won't intimidate any of you. I can see you guys all are pretty media savvy. Now, how media savvy are you? Do you know, for example, has anybody here ever seen the Naked News? You guys need to loosen up a little bit here. I know I just asked you if you watch pornographic news, and I know that could be potentially embarrassing, but we're all friends here, right? Has anybody here ever seen the Naked News? That's better. The reason I'm asking you this is because this is Daniel, and Daniel used to work at the Naked News. Now the thing is that, you know, I didn't know this, but I kept watching Daniel in his first few weeks when we were working together, and he kept looking at Denise weird. He was like, I said, what's up with this guy? And I said, Daniel, is everything okay? He says, yeah, I've just never seen a host with their clothes on before. It's true. So we're thrilled to have you here. We've been working on this since December, actually, off and on since December. And one of the things that we were trying to do in the process of creating this show was to try and kind of describe what it was. And we went through, you know, a lot of television marketing language. And eventually what we ended up doing was we got inspired by the farmer's market. If you've been to the farmer's market recently, you know that at the farmer's market, everything is small batch, everything is organic, everything is, artisanal. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make an artisanal, small batch television show, okay? Now, you'll note that our cameramen were all homeschooled. They were all, these cameras, for example, that is made with organic petroleum. The lenses are made with what you call in Alberta, it's a special kind of Albertan blown organic glass. Fantastic. In fact, look, the televisions have been recycled, and some of the script has been recycled as well. So I'm sure we're going to have a great time today. And what I want to do is I want to just tell you a couple things. First of all, you want to be able to get in touch with the show, because we want to talk to you. So our Twitter handle is @theZoomer TV. And you can also visit us online at thezoomertv.com. So right now what I want to do is I want to introduce you to Daria, and she's going to bring you through the pre-show drill. Okay? Thank you all very much for coming today. I forgot to tell you who I am. My name is Matt Zimbel. I'm the supervising producer. Daria, they're all yours.
Hi everybody. My name is Daria. I'm the floor director. And thank you all again for coming. And as Matt said, if you do want to post any photos or videos to Instagram, Twitter, Vine, please hashtag theZoomer as well. We'll be able to find it like that, and we'll retweet your photos. I do want to, one final reminder, everybody please turn off your cell phones. It does interfere with our audio boards. Putting it on silent or airplane mode doesn't really help. One other thing I wanted to know is, so we've got a lot of clapping we've got to do here. So I want to see how strong your clapping is. Can we try it out? In 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you guys, that was so sweet. But Dan, at Naked News, was the clapping that strong, or can they do a little bit better?
Maybe a little better.
All right, let's try one more time. This is the first show live. We're going air on Monday at 9 p.m. on Vision TV. So I want to see how excited everybody is. Let's try it again. Can we try one more time? 1, 2, 3. There's magic to that. A little bit of TV magic. So everybody have fun. Thank you all for coming again. And just one last thing, I promise. promise.
We need two more. Two more claps so I can do weird
Okay,
throws.
we're gonna do
Okay.
2 more claps. On 3, 1, 2, 3.
Thanks for that. When we come back, Brian Mulrooney, Molly Johnson, and more. Stay with us.
One final one as a warm-up. On 3, 1, 2, 3.
More to come. Stay right there. We'll be right back. Now that's for when we make mistakes and I have somewhere to cut. It's really good. Okay. Not that we're going to make mistakes. There'll be no mistakes.
We've got 3 TVs on this side, and we've got 2 TVs on this side. We will be playing videos throughout the show. If I can ask you guys to pay attention to what's content.
I'm going to go right to you right away with Dr. Long.
Live to the floor in 3 minutes. 3 minutes to the
It's the online piece, right? So what we're going to do here, everybody, is we're just going to spend a couple of minutes, and it's basically to warm the panel up now that you're all warmed up. And it's about to talk about a topical issue that's going on. It'll be used online, not on TV, although if it's brilliant, we might use it on TV as well. And so I'm just going to start, and the audience just dive in. This is our dinner table party, so feel free to run amok, although you have to stay where you're seated, because it's all about the lighting, don't you know? Okay. All right. So Dr. Donald Lowe's legacy as a leader is really in the field of medicine. And he'll be remembered, of course, for ushering Canada through our SARS crisis. But what he did in the 8 days before his death really showed true grit. He recorded a video, later made public by his very wonderful wife. And it was a really personal plea for doctor-assisted suicide in the country. I'm going to start with you right away, Suzanne, because what do you think? Are we ever going to get to a place where Canada is all right with dying with dignity?
I think that we are starting to get a lot of interest in it, and I think we have to start the conversation. We are so afraid of talking about it right now that actually I can't tell you what we think. And I think that when we look at this kind of thing, we actually were graded by The Economist, who were looking at a quality of death index. And they graded Canada very poorly. They said, on one hand, you do have universal health care. On the other hand, you won't talk about it. So we can't have a useful decision about what kind of quality of death do we have in the country? What can we do for people? What kind of rights do they have to choose their time and manner of death?
Yeah, he said, I remember him saying in the video that he thought because clinicians typically, or as we understand, tend to be against helpful deaths. And he said, if my colleagues could live in my body for 24 hours, they would change their minds. Libby, is that what you heard?
That's absolutely what I heard. And the fact is that it does happen, and it happens a lot. It was interesting. I talked to our only quadriplegic MP, Stephen Fletcher, who's broken with his party over this. And he believes in it. And he says that basically it's happening anyway. People get increased doses of morphine, and sometimes elderly people forget how to eat and they starve to death, which is horrible. Mm-hmm. And I think that in most cases, you're talking about a very small amount of time between when somebody might want an assisted death and when it would happen naturally.
Mm-hmm. And right now we understand, well, Stephen Harper has said that he doesn't want to even introduce the discussion, and that your MP from BC has, as you've said, broken with the party on it. But yet it's being introduced in Quebec, right? It's been tabled, although it's not a bill yet. What do you think, Conrad? Has this got a hope of flying?
Yes, I am perhaps unrepresentative. I'm something of a stick in the mud, and I have some concerns about trivializing the whole idea of people dying, whether it's abortions, the death penalty, or unrestrained police actions, or even this. I'm in complete sympathy with the people that Susan and Libby are speaking of, but we've got to watch any legislation about this. If people want to commit suicide, they can do it until they've reached an absolutely extreme position. if we get too casual about life being just dispensable, it is going to lead to bad things. As for Harper, he said all along he would never touch any of these issues, including abortion.
But without-
presumably
They have it in Oregon, and
well, you aren't holding that up as a model of how to govern a place, are you?
You know, we're going to poll our members this weekend as it happens, and we're going to ask them, what is your objection? What would be the objection? Why do you think it should or should not happen? And we'll see what they have to say. I mean, the questions really revolve around people's religion, their fear that they're going to be pushed over, their fear that people who are elderly or ill are going to be pressured. And of course, there's the objection that, you know, they don't really actually want to talk about it at all. They just think life should take its natural course. But as Dr. Lowe said, until they see what death looks like, you know, at those last moments, it's not like it's on TV where you just say goodbye and lie down. It is actually pretty ugly, and so much so that many doctors now are tattooing on their chest, no code, don't touch me.
okay, you know what? There's a funny story about that.
Go ahead, but I mean, as a practicing physician, I'd like to jump into this at some point too. Because what you said, Libby, was right. This has actually in some ways been going on for years. I mean, I know there are times when I have quietly unplugged a ventilator. It's not done officially, it's done when the family and the nurses and everybody feels it to be done, but it's a very private sort of decision. On the other hand, it's easy for a lot of us to have an intellectual opinion about this, but I got faced with the other side of it when it was my mother. She was 75, she was terminal, and she asked if I could help. And I said, listen, I can tell you how to do it, but for some reason I can't explain it. I cannot help do it. I cannot go and buy it for you, but I can't do it. And I don't know whether it's because I'm a physician or because you're my mother, but it became very different for me that moment.
Ronnie, what do you think? You've always been totally in control of everything you've done your entire career. Maybe out of control sometimes. Yeah.
But I tell you, I've heard about it for a long time. My simple country boy way of thinking is if you're going and there ain't nothing nobody can do about it, get it over with as quick as you can, because so many of your family's suffering, everybody's suffering, everything, and the bills are going up. When it's time for me to go, I know how I'm going to go.
How are you going to go?
But these cases do recover occasionally. I mean, someone like Ariel Sharon is unlikely to come back and be sensible, but that does occasionally happen.
Ever, right. But didn't start that way. So.
But you're talking about terminal cancer or something like that. But the DNR thing, I wrote a column about it last year, and I got a deluge of mail, and one man sent me a picture of his bare chest with the DNR, do not resuscitate, and he apparently had some medical procedure, and they took off his shirt, and the nurse said, you know what? Nobody will pay any attention to that unless you have a power of attorney for personal care in writing.
Right.
And even there,
forget the tattoo.
The problem is that the personal attorney is maybe 7 pages long, and I have to make a decision now.
Right.
I've got time to read 7 pages.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough.
Well, we're going to be watching this story, particularly as Quebec is about to go into a real conversation about this bill, and you can bet you're going to be hearing a lot more on the Zoomer about dying with dignity. We'll be right back after this. Audience, you're very good. You're very good. Are you okay back there? You're very far. Hi. Oh, hi. I got one of these. Did anybody else try to keep your neck straight? It's just my little. Yeah. Was it? Oh, okay. All right, we'll be ready to go. 30 seconds. Oh, okay then. Tits up. Everybody chins up. It's for real now.
Hey, show this back.
With
This death with dignity thing can get completely out of hand, you know.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's going to be a big we were over
Need
now.
any help over there?
Yes,
the only
thanks,
guy with
Ronnie.
his
Could you
jacket off.
pop by? Check, test
With
it.
his jacket off.
I can. Yep. There you go. I can tell we're not going to have any fun
15 to
today.
the opening, 15 seconds to the opening.
Okay, the money goes here. No tipping.
Where's the business class?
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, the Zoomer with Conrad Black and Denise Donlin.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to edition 1 of the Zoomer. Thank you for tuning in and showing up. It means a great deal to us. On tonight's program, Conrad sits down for a conversation with one of the Right Honorables. Rompin' Ronnie Hawkins is in the house, and the wonderful Molly Johnson is here to play a Johnson classic. And of course, to my right, historian, writer, financier, and my co-host, Conrad Black. Welcome, everybody. Conrad, it's actually been a lot of fun building the show with you, and I know you've been on a mad interview trail for the last couple of weeks. You did Ken Taylor and Bob Ray. Who are we going to see tonight?
Brian Mulroney.
Oh.
And despite his long love affair with the press, he doesn't give interviews very often. And this wasn't really, as you know, an interview. It was a conversation. But he's really quite direct and I think quite revealing on several current issues.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very good interview. And I've been busy myself, you know.
I know.
Yeah, I've done some interviews, producing, you know, helping the crew patch the control room, editing, packaging. And now that I'm back on television, I've been shopping for a thicker skin.
I can give you a transplant.
Really? That would be excellent. Okay. Now, one of the hosts on this show, and I certainly don't want to say which one, is known for using, shall I say, multisyllabic modes of expression. You know, big words and stuff. So, as a service to you, and particularly for me, in our quest for perspicacity, we have developed a drop-down dictionary. Bill, could you bring that in? I hope you're going to find this useful. I know I will. Today around the round table, I'm sorry, Conrad, did you want to argue?
I don't use the pedantic word. I try and use the correct word.
Was that a bad word? Did I start off with the wrong word?
Perspicacity is fine.
Excellent.
Let's try for it.
We're going to do that. Today around the round table, we're going to talk radical longevity. At the hospital just down the street, a baby is being born right now, and that child has a very good chance to live to 120. That almost sounds like an ad, doesn't it? Humans, now longer lasting. Joining us to talk about the impact of living to 120 is an expert on human aging, Dr. Michael Fossel. And Vice President of Advocacy for CARP, Susan Eng. Author of the Book of Immortality, Adam Leith Gallner. Vice President of News for Zoomer Media, Libby Znaimer. And celebrating his longevity by hitting the road on a new Canadian tour at the age of 78, Rompin' Ronnie Hawkins. Keep those women back. Right, that's great.
Security.
Get ready, panel, and we're going to dive into longevity in just a few minutes. But before we do, here's a few stories we've been following this week. A United Nations study is reporting that Canada ranks 5th out of 91 countries in the social and economic well-being of their elders. Sweden was on the top, and Afghanistan was on the bottom. The report came with a warning that countries are not coping with their aging populations. And this isn't a back burner issue anymore, because by 2050, for the first time in history, people over 60 across the planet will outnumber children younger than 15. Let's hope we do better in this study next year, and with CARP's help, I think we will. CARP was front and center with ceremonial flag raisings across the country to help pay tribute to our seniors who have built our country and who continue to make valuable contributions to Canada. Amen. Can we hear an amen for the seniors? Yes, amen. Okay. New rules from Health Canada for what they call a free market approach to licensing large indoor medical marijuana farms. And we at theZoomer ask, what happened to family farming? The government expects revenues for the new industry to reach $1.3 billion a year by 2024. The controversial plan prohibits patients from growing their own so that Health Canada can ensure the quality of the product. Now, the question is, even though Stephen Harper has stated that he has never smoked pot and he has no intention of decriminalizing marijuana, what's with the new rules? Is he just trying to smoke out Justin Trudeau? Let's zoom out and find out. What do you think, Conrad? Is this political maneuvering?
It's not for me to impute motives to him, but I don't think he thinks he's got a lot of votes among the pot users.
Oh, he doesn't.
So he's not losing.
Well, he's got a lot of votes among the seniors, from what we understand.
He actually has the Boomer Zoomer is actually his best bet to actually get legalized marijuana. So I'm not sure if this, selling it himself is somewhat a sop to that generation, because when we polled our members, 60% supported legalizing pot, not just decriminalizing it, and certainly not just having police issue tickets. And so there's an entire generation that, grew up on it and see no reason why it shouldn't be legalized.
But Susan, are you saying he's going to lose votes with his stance?
Well, actually, I think he might actually win some votes if he's going to be Canada's biggest drug dealer.
I'm going to vote for him, I'll tell you that.
Okay, thanks, Dottie.
My point exactly.
There you go. Stay with us. We're going to be back in a second with our guide to living to 120. Well done.
Shambles. We should legalize everything.
A healthy 60-year-old has a 50% chance of living to 90.
How about a healthy 6-year-old?
125.
Seriously?
Seriously. Welcome back to the Zoomer. Today we're talking radical longevity. Let's get some background on the subject so we're all on the same page. Take a look at this. In 1513, the Spanish conquistador Ponce de Leon was searching for the fountain of youth when he bumped into what is now Florida. He did not find the fountain of youth. Maldito! In 1513, life expectancy was about 36 years. In 1900, it rose to 50. In the 1950s, it rose again to 63. Now, life expectancy is between 80 and 83. And it gets better. A baby born today has a good chance of living until they're 120. Canadians now live 3 more years than Americans.
3 more years free healthcare, eh? Go Leafs!
British Columbians live longer than anyone else in Canada, proving that Nanaimo bars are more healthy than originally thought. Women tend to live longer than men, but the men are catching up. As Leonard Cohen sings,
She's 100, but she's wearing something tight.
sounds good, but is there enough money to support pension, old age security, and health care? There better be, because here comes the silver tsunami. It's a silver tsunami, and we'd better get ready. So let's start with a question I know all of you are asking. Could this really happen? And if so, would I really want it to? Dr. Michael Fossel has authored many books on the subject, including Reversing Human Aging and a definitive textbook on the subject, Cells, Aging, and Human Disease. And so, Michael, I want to start with you. Is this 120-year projection just a headline?
I think it is.
Really?
I do. I think that you can't get to 120. You certainly can't get beyond it unless we do something dramatically different. And you raise that immediate question, why would you want to? If it's another 20 years in a nursing home, not me, thank you very much. No, it's not only going to have to be something we do dramatically different, but it has to mean a better life, too.
Well, there's all kinds of implications in terms of what we do as a society if we actually live longer there. But I'm going to go to you, Adam, because your book, which is fantastic. So sorry I didn't say that about yours, Michael. I haven't read them all yet. It's the Book of Immortality, which sounds almost biblical when you think about it. And it took you all over the world to meet people who have dedicated their lives to living forever, which has been really an age-old quest, right? Full of wild practices. What did you find?
We've always wanted to find some way around the unavoidable. And so what I found is that since the earliest examples of medical history, that we have tried to find methods of either prolonging life or trying to live forever. And of course, none of them have ever worked. And there are some quite ridiculous examples of Chinese emperors who took mercury-based potions of immortal life, and they died as a result of consuming these potions. And all sorts of other things. I mean, there's just this kind of unceasing litany of things that we have done that have never worked. And to this day, we still don't know how to prolong human lifespans. We're living longer than ever before, but we don't know how to slow the aging process or how to reverse it or even how to affect it.
And even despite all of those things, llama urine, getting baboon testicles pasted on, and mummy dust, it's crazy.
Yeah, you can try all of those things. I haven't tried llama urine, but I don't think it would have an effect.
Well, actually, we have some here at the table.
Yeah, mine is actually llama blood.
Okay, good. Libby, you've run into all kinds of people who are trying hard to extend their lives, like the caloric reduction people, right? Those guys?
Well, if you don't live to 120, it'll certainly feel like that. Not for me, thank you.
Right, caloric reduction is the one where you really dramatically restrict, right, your intake, and you end up freezing mostly all the time.
And I remember we had those people at an Idea City conference a couple of years back, and they arrived with great big smocks and vats of vegetables, and they would start fixing their own really unappetizing looking lunches because they couldn't eat along with everybody else. But that's the theory. If you drastically reduce the amount of food you eat, you'll live longer.
Well, it's interesting that it turns out that a lot of people might actually not want to live longer. And Susan, you did a recent CART poll which talked about this. Let's take a look at that. In a recent CART poll, Canadians were asked if we wanted to live to be 120 years old. 56% of us said, no thanks, and 19% said, yes, please. If not, why not? 76% said it will strain resources, and 54% said it was fundamentally unnatural. And what are our greatest concerns about longevity? 52% say staying healthy, and 11% worry about having enough money. All in all, though, while we expect to live to 88, CART members are gunning for 94. Ronnie, you were facing a radical terminal cancer.
They gave me 90 days or less to live.
And so what happened? You're still here looking pretty good.
I started partying. I did things that would kill Charles Atlas.
Always the best medicine.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're going, I want to go out in style. I had bands and music, and we did things like we did when we was ignorant.
I know, I sent you a goodbye note, I remember, but then you were healed over the phone, I understand.
Well, this kid, Adam, I was telling you about earlier,
Not this kid. Adam Dream Healer.
His dad, him called me. His dad was a fan, evidently, and he was about 15 years old then. He was a very young kid, but super smart. And so when they called me, they said that they thought that they could heal me, you know. So when you're dying, you'll try anything. Goodness. I said, well, come on, let's try her. And he came out there and did a little stuff, but we don't know whether it was him or all those other good doctors or all that medicine I was on. But anyway, I went in the last time to take what they call them, a CAT scan or whatever they call that is, and they stood there and looked at one another. It was gone, like a July snow. And they could not believe it, and they're still thinking something's weird going on.
Well, I'm glad you're taking advantage of all the extra years you've got, because you sound like a total uber-zoomer to me.
Well, I want to tell you, I was going to order up all my organs from China, except one, and I was going to get it in the Congo.
Okay.
Can we get that other Adam's phone number by any chance?
That's fantastic. Well, Ronnie, I'm glad you're still here. And take a look at these Uber Zoomers, and we're going to be right back after this. Sorry, it's cold to go. Welcome back to theZoomer. We're talking radical longevity today. And Carnot, I remember, and maybe she still does it, the Queen used to send a personal greeting to all of her subjects when they turned 100. That's got to be a full-time job now.
Well, she sent 255 in her first year as Queen in 1952, and in the UK and the Commonwealth countries, you know, then dominions. And now it's up to almost 7,000.
A year?
Yes.
Wow.
And in the United States, the president sends a letter. And in Ireland, the president sends a letter accompanied by a check for €2,500.
Irish. It's good to be Irish.
But you know, the Queen, in another 12 and a half years, she'll be writing a letter to herself. I want to make one comment. I think Ronnie Hawkins is clearly the subject of a miracle, and you're halfway to sainthood, Ronnie. And this is a momentous development that's been under-recognized, I think, in popular culture in this country.
I love the Irish. Yeah.
Yes, well, you are Irish, aren't you?
Well, yeah, partly. I come from the Black Donnellys on one side, and but I have the Churchills on the other side.
Well, they're English.
Yeah, well, or as my mother says, sorry, darling, you're from the bastard side of the gene pool, I'm afraid. So, Libby, you recently went out to a nursing home where there was a dozen or so centenarians celebrating.
Even more. It was the mother of all birthday parties. 14 people at St. Hilda's Retirement and Assisted Living were marking these big milestones. That's nearly 10% of the nursing home's population. Even more remarkable, the two oldest women seem to be in the best shape. So I spent a little time with them to try to learn something about what it takes.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, centenarians.
You're 102.
Yes, lucky.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think I'm blessed. I'm happy because I'm here. I have peace. I have a very loving, wonderful family who encourage me to try to do everything in order to stay alive.
What's your secret to living so long?
To have a very positive attitude.
And what do you enjoy doing?
I attend yoga, tai chi, fitness classes that they offer, and apart from that, I sit at home and I reflect on my past.
So you are going to be 105?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I just live with it.
But you seem to be in great shape. You,
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I have my aches and pains like everybody else. I guess I just inherited a long life, that's all.
What do you think?
That's my daughter.
Oh, how old is she?
Oh, 78, I think.
She looks very young, my goodness. Really? Carol, your mother just told me you're 78. Is that true?
No. No, 75 actually.
What do you think the secret is? Your mother is about to turn 105. You're 75.
Well, she's been active all her life. She was square dancing into her 90s and lawn bowling into her 90s and playing bridge. She's a life master bridge player.
Would you like to live to 120?
No, I don't like living this long. I'd sooner pass along earlier.
Why?
Well, my husband died, and I was very lonely, and I miss him very, very much. So I don't feel that I have that much to live for.
She feels she's a burden because she can't do things for herself. She can't drive anymore, and she can't
drive anymore. She's 105.
Well, she has appointments, doctor's appointments, and she really hates to put anybody out to drive her to her appointments. So she feels she's a burden.
Would you like to live to 120?
No. No way. Another year, maybe. It's enough.
What really struck me about their reasons for not wanting to live longer were they all seem to be things that could be easily remedied. So I think that in addition to lengthening our telomeres and replacing our worn-out parts, the longevity scientists are going to have to figure out how to reinvigorate the appetite for life.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things to be done, too, because there are people, we know we're living longer, and yet politically, what has to change, I think? We have to, socially, we need to revere aging, ethically, and politically, what do you think, Susan?
Absolutely. I think we got in our poll, in addition to talking about their health, a lot of people worried about whether or not they would outlive all their family and their friends. I was on a call-in show, and one man called in to say, I don't want the heartbreak of losing all my friends and my family. And so people are very level-headed when they talk about the issue of longevity, that life, not the quantity of life, but the quality of life is what matters. So what can we do? As Libby says, there are things that we could do very easily. She didn't want to be lonely. Well, we can fix that. These are things we can fix. There are scientific things. Medical science may not be able to fix some of these things, but we can fix social change. And that's where politics does work in our favor. These are things that we can actually ask for.
What do we think? Just let's do a straw poll in the audience. How many people here, including the panel, want to live to be 120 years old? Hands up. Whoa.
It depends what you're asking.
Interesting.
You know, because most of us, this is the same panel that she did, the Pew Foundation did in the US, and they said, who wants to live 120? And most people translate that into another 20 years in the nursing home? No, thank you. But if instead of that I said, how would you like to live to be 120 but had the health you had at, say, age 40? My wife said she wouldn't be 18 again for anything under the sun, but at 40, you know, where you didn't have sickness or disease, that's a different question. In a heartbeat, I'd say yes, but if you said another 20, 30 years in the nursing home, not so much.
120 is going to be the new 80, 90?
There you go. There. That's it.
Well, she had some pretty good ideas on that tape, too. You know, not to be, the Tai Chi was very good. And Michael, or Adam, sorry. Adam, you talk in your book about, you know, all of these methods that people have been, I mean, you visited magicians on islands, you went to cryogenic labs, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, you remained unconvinced that basically all we could do is eat our vegetables and look both ways before we cross the street.
Yeah, even then, we don't know when we're going to go. We can't control that. And I think that what's hard for people is to accept the uncertainty. And it's interesting that when we talk about trying to live to 120, we think, oh, that's something that would be desirable. But again, as these people we saw, they said, they don't want to. They don't want to live beyond 101, 102. And why is that? And even when we talk about these potential treatments that could be out there, people don't want to take them if they were made available. And why is that? It's because we're dubious about whether these things can actually help us.
That happens to young people, too. I mean, you get 17-year-olds who don't want to live to be 18. So it really does have to do with the quality of life. It's not just your age. There's a lot more to it.
There was one statistic that really blew my mind in the American survey, which was they asked people if you could live to be over 120, would you want that? Like if you could go beyond that. And only 4% of people said they'd like to live to be over 120.
But I think it changes when you're facing it in the face, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask it a different way, though. Let's say that you could wake up tomorrow morning and you could either be 90 years old or 30 years old. Which would you pick? You know what I mean?
I can't do that. I mean, that's the thing. I know. We enter the realm of the speculative.
What I mean is, the question I'm really asking is, what if we could give you better health? You know, then it becomes a different question. There are very few people who can imagine who'd say, I've got the health of a 30-year-old, and it's 120. I'm going to die today. That's it. I've had it. It's a matter of how much you're enjoying life, whether it's Tai Chi or your new boyfriend, or you know.
Yeah. And yet there's all kinds of people, you know, big heads of corporations, people with lots of money who are spending a lot of their money investing in these, you know, new inventions, cryogenics, all of that. What do you think?
Well, I think Michael's absolutely right. It's a matter of what conditioner. You know, Jonathan Swift referred to the Struldbrugs, the old people whose limbs were falling off and they were just, you know, they were decrepit. People don't want that. Sorry?
Myth of Tithonus, remember that one?
Yes, exactly. Well, people don't want that. It's just what you said, Michael. If they can live in tolerably good health, I think, with great respect, Susan, we all know about polls on all subjects. It's sort of a matter of how they're worded. I mean, most people are afraid of actually dying. They're not afraid of being dead particularly, but the actual process of dying frightens everybody. And I think they would rather defer it sine die if their health is all right. But
these two women that I spent time with, their health was fine, and the things that they said, she thought she was a burden because she couldn't drive. Excuse me. The other woman said, you know,
disabuse them of that.
Yeah, no. The other woman said, I don't hear well, so I used to have very close relationships, friendships in this, and I used to talk, and we can't talk anymore. I'm thinking, hearing aid? How hard is that? But I think it's something else that's maybe a little more profound.
Though, I mean, when Benjamin Disraeli lost his hearing, it extended his life as prime minister. He said, now I don't have to listen to all these ghastly politicians.
But I think the point that you're making that, you know, that these are easily remedied, they're not, because there's social precepts about what you should be doing at a certain age, that you can't be a burden. These are things that our members are worried about as well. Because somehow society says, well, you know, they say that at a certain age, you know, there's this precept that at a certain age, you're no more use. You can only be defined by your dependency. And if we don't change that attitude, then people are going to self-identify with that. And they're going to start saying, well, you know, maybe I should call it quits. And unless we can fix that, unless we can actually push back when we hear even the language of gray tsunami, we're going to see that more and more people will be unhappy as they last longer, instead of joyfully looking at the opportunities that they have rather than the handicaps.
Well, I think, if I may, if people were as little tenacious of life as that, wouldn't the suicide rate, and I address this to all of you, be 20 times what it is?
No, they haven't got the nerve for it. And so that's really where it comes down to. I mean, if they're not tenacious enough to love life, they may not be tenacious enough to find a way out of it. I think that there is an opportunity here when we're looking at what we believe people ought to do. And I think a lot of that, we start to actually make people want to leave. Maybe we can change that. That's an easier thing to do.
Well, I think I have a way to want to go out well, and that's to keep on rocking. So we're going to come back and talk to Ronnie after the break. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with this revelation just to set the record straight. Ronnie Hawkins invented the moonwalk in 1959.
if the world had more people like Ronnie Hawkins, we'd do less stupid things to each other. We'd hurt fewer people. We'd have a lot more laughs. I mean, he's just, I never met another one like him.
Well, little Willie, you better get back in school. Oh, that's a handsome booger.
Right, he's a handsome bugger. You're absolutely right, Ronnie. Just allow me to say that for you. Okay.
Ronnie, we've known each other a great many years, including some horrifyingly liquefied evenings that would not have extended our life expectancies. Did you ever think you'd be going out on the road again at 78?
Well, I was hoping I could, because there's still a few girls out there that I hadn't seen yet.
Well done.
I went by to see a couple of my old girlfriends in Kitchener, you know, a couple of months ago. They've been dead 5 or 6 years, man. I didn't even know it, dude.
Oh.
So you know I'm getting a little old. Yeah. That's why I got to have that body transplant quick.
Oh, okay. Next up, body transplants on a future show. Well, Ronnie, thank you so much for stopping by. This is the state of the Canadian music industry. Ronnie's got to go. He's got a gig. So thank you, my dear.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And say how this is the smartest man in the world. I've been told that for 50 years.
Not by me.
So as Ronnie heads out, I'm going to go over because Molly Johnson has walked in. Where is she? Where is Molly, ladies and gentlemen? Molly, Molly, Molly. Hello. Molly, I'm sorry you couldn't join us, but you're too young for the table. I think that's going on.
I could have sworn I'm just a little bit older than you.
Molly and I have known each other for, I don't even know how many years, but we first met when you were doing your first HIV/AIDS event, Kumbaya.
That's right.
20 years ago? And you're still
Almost.
at it.
I'm
You're
still
still
at it.
changing the
Almost, yeah,
world.
I'm still changing it and working
Yeah?
with it.
You got one coming up?
I do.
Okay.
We have one coming up. Stay tuned.
All right. In the meantime, what are you going to play for us?
Well, you do have a show about longevity.
We do.
So I thought I'd sing an old song. Oh, hi, Lorraine Segato, for crying out loud. Sorry.
An old song?
An old song about, well, the long way of goodbye. That's what it's called, the long way of goodbye. It's sort of about, yeah,
All
waving.
right. Well, here
goodbye.
she is, an exceptional songwriter, singer, radio host, dedicated activist, Miss Molly Johnson, everybody.
A promise to myself that I would sooner rot in hell than spend another moment with you. I feel the time is slipping by, and if I felt it was worth a try, then maybe, baby, I would try just one more sad sigh. I have sipped the sweetest wine, but this one tastes just past its prime. So go on, take the long wave goodbye. Doctor's bills are piling sky high, while I try to reason with why I haven't taken the long way goodbye. I had a chance weeks ago to tell you, baby, to hit that road, but one look at you with those sad brown eyes, well, I hate to see a grown man cry. You gotta go on, pack your things, 'cause I'm cutting all your strings and I'm waving the long wave goodbye. Here we go. Train is barreling down the track. would be your last mistake. Hill of beans don't count for much. Forget to write, please don't keep in touch, 'cause I'm waving the long wave goodbye. Yeah, yeah, I'm taking the long wave goodbye. Thank you very much.
We're going to be back right away with Conrad's conversation with Brian Mulroney about the Quebec Charter and a warning to the Harper government and pot. Don't go away.
Mr. Harper defeated Mr. Martin, Stéphane Dion, and Michael Ignatieff. Justin Trudeau is no Stéphane Dion.
Hi, we're back. A conversation with Brian Mulroney. Conrad, how'd it go?
Oh, very well. I've known him even longer than I've known Ronnie Hawkins, and of course he's a great Irish raconteur, and he says some interesting things here.
He did. Let's take a look.
Well, Brian, pardon my informality, but we've known each other nearly 50 years, and it would be a bit contrived if we weren't on a first-name basis at this point. Thank you for joining us. It is an honor to have you as the first subject of one of these conversations in this new program of ours.
I'm delighted to be with you.
On behalf of the whole crew, thanks very much. May I start, since it's quite topical, by asking you, as somebody who went through the wars of the, as many consider them to be, authoritarian laws in Quebec about treatment of minorities, what do you think of the controversy over the Charter of Values in that province?
Well, I think it was a needless controversy. No one needed this. The protections that you could legitimately look for in a democratic society or need are all there, have been there since 1975, provincially, and federally since 1982 with the Charter. And so if you want to build a dynamic, inclusive society, you've got all the instruments at hand. This limits that and sends out what I consider to be a negative, inappropriate signal to immigrants and to the vast immigrant communities that are bringing prosperity to Canada. We can't function as a country without strengthening and enhancing the number of immigrants that we bring in. That's life. That's the way it's going to be. One of the pleasures I get now when I look back on my own time in office is not the So the bigger ticket items that historians look at, but the fact that I moved immigration up to 250,000 a year, the highest in the history of Canada, even throughout the recession, because I believed that you can't build a great country like ours without immigration, and lots of it. So this is the wrong signal to send to the immigrants. Moreover, while I didn't study the legislation carefully, I did look at it, and it's clearly unconstitutional. And I think the La Cour d'appel du Québec and the Supreme Court of Canada will so rule.
But it is a place where the notwithstanding clause could be invoked, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But you know, there is a weakening in the resolve, you can see it in Quebec, to all of a sudden separate there's no fury, there's no frenzy, there's no great national debate, there's no impulse,
there's no great grievance, really.
No, there's no national dream that anyone's articulating. It's kind of pedestrian. How can we put the stick now in with this charte des valeurs, and maybe we could do this, and maybe we could do, it's all kind of penny ante stuff, as opposed to the great and glorious dreams for a separate Quebec, which were articulated by a great Democrat, eloquent Democrat like René Lévesque, who, by the way, would never have tolerated this charte des valeurs.
No.
He was a fundamental Democrat.
Yeah.
He believed in freedoms of all kinds, and this stuff wouldn't have passed muster with him, which is, I think, one of the reasons why he had so much appeal.
Moving into more specific political matters, would you comment on, I mean, you cross swords often with Pierre Trudeau. I hope you're not uncomfortable saying something about your professional evaluation of Justin Trudeau as a party leader.
Well, I happened to be in Toronto, a meeting with the editorial board of the Globe and Mail and the National Post, the day that Mr. Trudeau launched his campaign for leadership. And they said, well, Mr. Justin Trudeau is going to announce his candidacy today. What do you think? I said, I think the Conservatives will underestimate him at their peril. He's a good-looking guy. He's smart. What's not to like with this picture? Mm-hmm. And so in the present context, Trudeau's big strength is that he's not Stephen Harper. That's what he's doing now. Will that get him across the street? I don't know. But for the moment, because Mr. Harper has his own persona and his own virtues, and they're not inconsiderable in terms of political leadership and accomplishment, but on the personal attributes, the other, Justin is younger and he has more panache, and for the moment, that has its own appeal. You know, Conrad, if you look at what he's got going here, Mr. Harper defeated Mr. Martin, mm-hmm. Stéphane Dion, and Michael Ignatieff.
Yes.
Justin Trudeau is no Stéphane Dion.
Let me ask you about Thomas Mulcair, who is, after all, the leader of the opposition at the moment. Can he hold that position? It seems on its face to be an aberrant status for the NDP, but what's your call on that?
Well, I don't know Mr. Mulcair, and I thought that he performed well when he introduced that new style into the House of Commons, asking those terse, meaningful questions about Mr. Harper on those senatorial appointments. Yeah. I thought that was the zenith of his parliamentary career. He's going to have to do better and more. He's got Harper who's going to come at him all guns blazing, and he's got Trudeau who's going to do the same thing. So Mulcair's got he's in an invidious position, and he's going to have to, you know, they say Trudeau has to get some policy out. He doesn't. The guy that's got to get the policy out fast is Mulcair.
And it has to be to the right of where the NDP traditionally was.
Exactly.
Do you think it was an astute move politically? Now, again, not getting into your own preferences as to what should be done, but politically, was it a good move for Justin Trudeau to propose the legalization of marijuana?
Well, I thought it, when it happened, I thought it was dumb because I had read what Margaret had said years ago. Mrs. Trudeau had written that she was very much against the use of marijuana because it led to, in her case, it had led to serious drug use that damaged her and damaged other people. And then I found that my daughter-in-law, Jessica, told me that she thought that it might be a generational thing that we were into. And my guess is what she meant was that I was on the wrong generation.
Yeah.
and I think I was, because it emphasized his youth, and it emphasized the big thing that he's not Stephen Harper. That's his big thing. That's what he's going to run on. Don't worry about me. Just remember, I'm not Stephen Harper. I ran in 1984 on the thing, I'm not Pierre Trudeau. And I just got tons of votes because of that. So I think it wasn't so dumb anymore. You know, I don't agree with it, but it was I think Jessica was right. It was a generational thing, and it sends a signal to the vast reservoir of youth we have that says, look, I'm not Stephen Harper. I can understand all of this stuff, and if you do it, I'm not going to put you in the slammer.
Well, Brian, for 48 years, every conversation we've ever had has been a pleasure for me, and thank you for joining us.
Well,
this one has been also.
Thank you for having me, Conrad, and good luck with the...
Well, I'm following your advice and starting a new career.
Absolutely.
That was very candid. Do you think he's a marketing company now for Justin? Is that he just gave him a free slogan?
No, but the relations between him and Harper are not that intimate, you know.
Between Prime Minister Harper
I think
and
it's fair to
Mulroney.
say that Brian was not in transports of delight over every moment of the elephant inquiry.
I see.
Now, did you find it odd, interesting, that the first attribute of Justin's that he praised said he's a good-looking guy? And how much of this do you think is that dynastic thing?
Well, for anyone who wants to listen to the full thing, the references to his father are there. It's not for me to say, but it's a first that you'd have the son of a prime minister as a party leader. You've often had sons of cabinet ministers become cabinet ministers, or sons of prime ministers occasionally in parliament, like Saint Laurent, for example. But this has never happened before, and so it is unusual. And of course, it wasn't that long ago. Most people remember Trudeau, and even those who don't, he's a famous name.
Did that feel American style to you, Michael?
Oh, I was just remembering the old Pierre and Margaret Trudeau jokes, which I won't get into, but yes.
Okay.
We all remember them.
Well, this guy was the product of it.
The books, the stories, the legends. You can see more of Conrad's interview online. So go to www.thezoomer.ca. thezoomer.ca. Stay with us. Good job on that interview. Well done. You wouldn't talk to me like that.
And never an empire. We are credible when seen to be acting independently, and we should propose substantial reforms of the United Nations. Someone has to do that.
Zoomer advocate Dale Goldhawk has a piece this week on car rentals and how not to get hosed in the rental ride. Let's roll.
Rent a car for $18.95 a day, marketing hogwash. First, the insurance, as my father would have said, it's a dog's breakfast. All over the place and messy. You can buy the rental agency insurance, $20 or $30 a day. It allows you to walk away legally from most accidents. Let your credit card cover the insurance, but check the card first for any exclusions. Maybe no insurance for luxury vehicles or SUVs. Maybe no liability insurance. Maybe no coverage on alternate Tuesdays during a full moon when you're parked on the north side of the street at a meter. With credit card companies, you never know. Really what you need to do, get out your glasses and read the tiny type. Or, you know, you can always let your own car insurance cover it if you have that clause in your policy, but you have to buy that option. Amid the countless other piddly charges that add up to big bucks, check this gambit. The rental guy might suggest you prepay a full tank of gas to avoid extra charges if you don't fill up the tank before returning the car. But any gas you do not use, you donate to the car rental agency. Probably not your favorite charity. Always check the car for damage before you take it off the lot and make sure, if there is any, that it's noted on the rental form. It's also a good idea to take a picture of the car when you return so they can't charge you for any damage you did not do. The car rental companies have lots of slogans. Perhaps as consumers, we should have one too. Stop trying harder to hurt my budget. I'm Dale Goldhawk for theZoomer.
That's our Zoomer advocate, Dale Goldhawk. This week on Talk Black, Conrad's take on our role at the UN. Roll to black.
Canada has some standing in world affairs, not because it is a strong country militarily, though our forces give a good account of themselves when they actually fight, but because it has never been involved officially in a losing or an unjust war. The World Wars, the Korean War, the Gulf War. And while Canada has been associated with alliances, they have always and only been defensive alliances led by and composed almost exclusively of democratic countries. In the old imperial colonial debate, while we were friendly with designated imperialists, Canada has been a colony and never an empire. We are credible when seen to be acting independently, and we should propose substantial reforms of the United Nations. Someone has to do that. They won't succeed right away, but these reforms will at least be an agenda objectively presented. They will be there and will gradually attract support. And we should propose universal criteria for the identification and sanitization of failed states so that humanitarian and anti-terrorist concerns are addressed promptly. This would spare the world the Afghan al-Qaeda, the Somalian pirates, the Sudanese genocidists. It is time for some creative thinking in international organizations. If not now, when? If not us, who?
I have a hunch you're going to want to tell us what you think. And we want to hear from you. It's a show for you, so we welcome your input. Find us on thezoomertv.com and Vision TV's Facebook page. Tweet if you like, at theZoomerTV. Thank you all for being with us. You guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. And everybody in the audience, have a good time? Yeah! That felt very genuine to me, I think. Yeah. Who have we got in the chair next week?
Bob Ray.
Bob
who's
Ray.
now our man with the Native people, and we couldn't have a better person.
I
And it's a
agree.
very interesting series of comments he makes.
And I think he's probably chasing, I mean, if he hasn't been through enough, one of the biggest life challenges in his whole career with this file. And I agree, I'm glad he's in that chair. Good night, everyone. Thanks for being with us. I'm going to see you next week. We're zooming out. Thank you. Thank you very much.